And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Thursday, July 18th. Joining us now, our friend Michael Steele, former RNC chair and co-host of the great show on MSNBC called The Weekend, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Saturday and Sundays. Check it out. I watch it all the time at the gym. That's when I go to the gym, early Saturday and Sunday. Good to see you, Michael.
Hey, good to see you, Dean. I appreciate you for that, and certainly appreciate the love folks give us on the weekend. So, it's nice, man. It's nice to know you out there sweating out all the pains and troubles of the week and watching us.
I'm doing the sweating to the mid-oldies. It's not the actual oldies, sort of like middle-age oldies. And by the way, I played clips of you and Simone interviewing the head of the Heritage Foundation. That was a great interview. And yeah. I played that on our show and actually put it in a special we did about Project 2025. It really was eye-opening. Kevin Roberts, right? That's his name?
Yes. And it was actually, I have to be honest with you. I was a bit surprised that he accepted our invitation to come and sit down with us. But once he sat down, I realized what the end game was, which was to sort of say, hey, we're not afraid to talk about this. And largely, this is kind of baked in. Trump's going to win, and there's nothing anybody can do about what's coming. And so it allowed us, I think, as you heard from the interview, a lot more energy to go after exactly what this Project 2025 is. And folks, yeah, it's 920 pages of game planning for what the federal government and what our country will look like. And you may not want to read the full 920 pages, but there's some great synopses out there. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of work that's been put in place to sort of break each section down, whether it's with respect to the Schedule F in the federal workforce, what the plan is on the abortion front, the environmental front, et cetera. So please go and inform yourselves, because this election, while everybody's having a battle over the president's age and the attempted assassination of the former president, at the end of the day, what the former president wants to do still matters.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need to focus on.
I agree. And I'm glad it's getting more and more coverage, and we're all doing our best to inform people about that's their blueprint. It's their playbook for what they going to do. So let's talk, you're familiar with the RNC conventions. I think you've been to a few.
Yeah, a little bit.
Day. So what's this one? Can I just tell you, and I haven't watched a lot. I watch a little. It's boring. This is really boring.
It's
like
deliberate.
Lara Trump is that on purpose? It is boring. What is your takeaway?
It is absolutely deliberate. So prior to the shooting, from what I understand from a number of folks who were tied into that process, it was a little bit wild, wild west. It was going to be full bore sort of MAGA. For everybody else, Trump would then come in and sort of be sort of the granddaddy of it all, and just kind of, put it into focus. After the shooting, the word got out. No, let's take a different tact, because of the way all of that was perceived broadly by the public. That the public would not have really bought the haranguing and the violent language that they typically have used in talking about Democrats and Republicans like myself and others. It was deliberately designed, and I have to give them credit for the quick turnaround to make it as boring as they possibly could. I know they told J.D. Vance to take a different approach to his speech, but I didn't think they told him to take a nap during his speech, and so he did that very successfully. Being in the hall and listening to it live, and because there's one thing when you're in the hall versus when you're on, watching it from TV. Sure. As you know, Dean, having covered these things, the hall gives you, the TV gives you sort of a different vibe, and some things can look boring that are actually pretty exciting, and vice versa. But in this instance, it translated across completely across. It was lackluster enthusiasm in the hall and a lot of the so-called punchlines. And that translated across the country. And I think going back to how we started the conversation, We cannot allow ourselves to be duped into thinking that anything about MAGA, because this is no longer the Republican Party I joined.
Mm-hmm.
This is now MAGA Republicanism, not Lincoln Republicanism. It's MAGA Republicanism. And this idea of getting lulled into thinking that they actually give a damn about you and they're going to be out here standing with you and fighting for the working man and woman is just not believable, because we have 4 years of Donald Trump's prior administration to look to. And I just give you how he looked out for the little guy and gal during COVID. You know, he made wearing a mask a political sign, a signal of something bad, and a lot of people died because they followed this narrative that did not give them the proper information to take caution and care for their lives and the lives of others. And so when you politicize wearing a mask, when you politicize your friends and your neighbors because of their political beliefs, or whatever, it just sends this kind of signal that you need to be wary. And a lot of that's what's stressed in the Project 2025 document, is laid out in practical form for a campaign to sort of get up and running immediately out of the gate. And it begins with sort of lulling people through this very boring convention that we're harmless.
Yeah.
We're people who really care for you. We're concerned about working men and women, and the fact that inflation is 3%. Gas prices are below what they were a year ago. We produce more oil than we ever have in the country. We're concerned for you, America.
Well, the other thing, and I'm chatting with Michael Steele, the one theme which they didn't back off, they even had signs printed, mass deportation, which is a jarring thing for people to chant, send them back, to hold signs up like that. That is so xenophobic into the world of authoritarianism. And I played some of the clips from the speakers, Greg Abbott, J.D. Vance on it, the former ICE guy. They're blaming, and J.D. Vance said he blamed immigrants, which he calls illegal aliens, but undocumented immigrants, for every problem there is. Housing, can't get enough housing, it's undocumented immigrants. Groceries going up, whatever it is, so they don't have to have policy prescriptions to address really like inflation or the need for affordable housing. Just blame it on these people and we'll get rid of them and all your problems will go away. It's beyond simplistic. It's actually dangerous because they're ginning up hatred and anger towards anyone who's brown skinned. That's the reality.
So, Dean, you and I have long had these conversations around the immigrant community, certainly members of the African American community, the Muslim community, the Hispanic community, folks who are often targeted as other for purposes of political, fodder to make their case. This probably is the most chilling aspect of Project 2025 because it involves the deportation of well over 1 million people a month is what they're looking at, 1.3 million people that they want to start immediately to round up, put in some form of concentration camps in states like Texas or wherever they can house them, as they either arrest them, whatever that means, or B, send them back to their country of origin. Now, the interesting thing about that is the presumption, both in the document and certainly in the narrative, as you know, is that the vast majority of these people are illegal immigrants from Mexico. Right. From Mexico. They're not. They come through Mexico. Whether they're coming out off the African continent or the Asian continent or the European continent, but they're not Mexicans, the vast majority of them. So this, but no one's kind of parsing through that to understand exactly what all that means. And it continues to foment the thinking that, like the fentanyl crisis, which fentanyl has been shown and documented to be brought into this country in large measure, not by Mexicans, but by Americans,
right,
who are bringing it back across the border illegally. Likewise, in this instance, those immigrants who are entering our country illegally in significant numbers are not Mexicans, to the degree to which this effort by Republicans to demonize Mexicans or men and women of color likes to play it out. So there are a lot. That's why I say, folks, please. I mean, I get it. You know, a quick fix on your phone, on TikTok, thinking you have information, baby. Please don't do that. You know, really understand exactly what's happening around you. Educate and inform yourself completely and thoroughly with multiple sources that you can cross-reference what you're learning and understanding. So you better know what this incoming administration looks like. And the same would be true. I'd be saying the same thing about the Biden administration for a second term. Mm-hmm. You know, if they're espousing, for example, they want reforms on the Supreme Court, well, understand exactly what that means. You know, just don't agree because you like the sound of something.
Right.
Because you need to peel back a little bit and really understand what it means and how it's going to impact you. And that's never more the case than what a second Trump term could potentially mean to young people, to immigrants, to men and women of color like yourself and myself, men and women of different faiths like yourself and myself. So, you know, there's a lot there, folks.
By the way, Supreme Court reform, in case you don't know, because I've seen an advanced copy, it means me and Joy Reid are going to be on the Supreme Court. It's going to be a brand new court. Justice Reid, Justice Obeidallah, like their worst nightmare. It's just like there's a Muslim and a black woman. That's exactly the slots. Forget beyond DEI, folks. This is the dream. So I mean, when you look at JD Vance, I'm sure there's a debate among Democrats. How much do you focus on him? Trump is horrific, but then JD Vance is more of an ideologue. He wants a national abortion ban. They have him on audio saying that. He sent a letter saying he wanted to criminalize the use of abortion pills. He's also called DEI just a few months ago in a letter, called it racial hatred, which I imagine that's from the point of view of white people. Like you're a self-hating white person if you support diversity programs. He is to the right on ideology of Trump in certain ways, and he's more thoughtful. He's giving it more thought. He's opportunistic, but on some level, I'm not going to say more dangerous, but he's a danger in his own right. And how do you balance that?
Look, JD presents an interesting dichotomy, I guess would be a good way to look at it, between Democrats and Republicans, in the sense that even among some Republicans, there's not, I mean, they're doing the unification front thing. Everybody's, JD, but it's not an enthusiastic kumbaya for them. There are a number of Republicans who did not want JD Vance to be the choice, because they were concerned about the sort of creating not just the MAGAification of the party, which has already happened, but the permanency of that, the legacy of that, him being the next generation of that, 39 years old, and fully MAGA, is not only scary, but completely dangerous when you compare it to maybe a 65-year-old person who's fully MAGA, right?
Right, certainly.
And is vice president of nominee. So there is that piece of it. For the Democrats, I think the man is already giving you enough ammo and information to level up pretty much on every position that he now speaks to as Trump's vice president. There are really appropriate and I think interesting narratives that can create separation, some tension between the presidential nominee and the vice presidential nominee. Trump is nothing if not sensitive to what people say about him. Mm-hmm. And he's very sensitive, even though he may, quote, forgiven, excuse, look past the fact that J.D. Vance called him America's Hitler. Being reminded of that for the next 3.5 months and being asked that over and over again. Well, JD, so is he still that? Well, I didn't mean that, but you said it. So what changed? How did Hitler become Saint Teresa? So that help me understand your transformation on this. Well, I was wrong. Well, then no, so that's not enough. So what were you wrong about exactly? Because something made you say it in the first place. Now we'd like to know what's making you say the opposite. So you can see how this can be crafted very, very carefully to, not allow people to get away with the BS. I mean, this is the thing. Republicans, and one of the things I picked up in the short time I was at the convention are a couple of things. One, they're locked and loaded on this being done. This election is over as far as they're concerned. Trump has won.
Right.
Period. I mean, I had folks send me texts after the unfortunate shooting on Saturday. Oh, this is over. We won. And I was like, that's your go-to, coming out of a former president being shot at. That's your initial reaction. You've won the election. So that kind of gives you a sense of how that's being juiced. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that there is a genuine belief that, given all of the back and forth within the ranks of the Democratic Party, with the sharp knives in the back of the president, I'm calling it a political coup within the Democratic Party personally, because I just can't believe that you would be so naive and dumb to do what's happening. And as the former chairman of a party, I would love to be the opposition party right now running against that. And so that leads them to believe you can't touch this. What we say narratively, you can't touch, because you're now so transfixed on A, setting aside your putative nominee, B, then trying to level up someone to replace him, and C, running a campaign against us. Good luck with that. All the while consolidating a base around that new individual, when there are fractures from those who are pissed the way you treated Biden, pissed that he didn't leave soon enough, now making this harder, et cetera, et cetera. And God help you if you don't choose Kamala Harris. So it's got
to be Vice President Harris. It's got, if it's not, I'm not pushing Biden out, but if President Biden makes that choice, if it's not VP Harris, forget it. Just focus on winning the House, because it's going to be a bloodbath everywhere else. But let me ask you though, in the last few minutes here, there's so much debating about, okay, if I thought after the assassination it was over, the talk of Biden. It's gotten even stronger right now. You see it. We all see it. It's a moving story. Of NBC reporter said it's palpable change, and he might be pushed out. If you were advising Democrats, how do you not make this irreparable? That whatever happens, if Biden stays or he says, I'm not going to stay, and it's VP Harris, how do we unite to try to defeat? It's 110 days to Judgment Day. I call it Judgment Day on my show.
Well, I think that's an important way to frame it. I think once the Democrats do whatever they're going to do, and that includes the president making whatever choice he's going to make, it has to get done within the next, I say, week. This time next week, if we're still having this conversation, there's no amount of rescue for the Democratic Party, because you are then at that point, literally about 3 weeks from your national convention, you're going to start the delegate count for the nomination on August 7th. You do not have the runway you're going to need for anybody else to come in to create the kind of momentum so that convention doesn't look like a you-know-what show. And people aren't mad walking in the door. You are seeding elements to replay, as much as at the beginning when Chicago was chosen, everyone, Democrats were nationally saying this is not, we're back in Chicago, but this is not 1968. Yeah, well, you don't have the Vietnam War going on, but you do have an internal war going on. And that very well could play out within the halls and the sinews of that convention center. in Chicago. So they've got to avoid that at all costs. If I'm Jamie Harrison, I'm telling everybody, y'all need to work this stuff out now, because y'all not coming into my house, because that's his house. Until the nomination is voted on, that's Jamie's house. That's his convention hall. Y'all not coming up in here pulling this crap off and messing up my thing, right? So y'all get it together. So when you come in here, we smooth. So that's got to get done. But then after that, what you just said is going to be important. You've got to unify behind, if it is Biden or someone else, you've got to run this thing hard. And you've got, as the narratives are there, the storylines are there. 4 years of Trumpism is there. It's not like you don't know what you're running against. You've got to wake people out of this notion that those 4 years ago, I mean, at the convention, they asked the question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And the answer is hell yes. I'm not watching family members get sick from COVID. I'm not listening to an administration tell me to inject myself with bleach. I'm not watching, tax cuts that were supposed to go to working class men and women only go to the wealthiest people, and watch my paycheck rise from those tax cuts by $1. Because that's what happened 4 years ago. Yep. So you've got the 4-year narrative you can talk about. You've got a number of other things that you can talk about in a big way. The one thing I would not use as a framing per se is this idea of the threat against democracy. What I think you talk about is, that what we're seeing coming from this form of this emerging second term is a threat to how your family will survive. Imposing 100% tariffs is a tax on your family. The environmental policies that this administration wants to put in place, the healthcare questions. They want to repeal Obamacare. 27 million of your neighbors, family members, and friends will be without healthcare, and pre-existing conditions automatically return. Try getting insurance. So tying it to people's real life experience. Don't just say, well, inflation's 3%. Hey, I know you're still feeling some of the burn from when it was 9%. But over the last year, we've done a great deal to get it down to a number that doesn't sap as much out of your pocket. In fact, if you look at your paycheck, you'll see not only have your wages gone up, but inflation is eating less of your money, right? And people realize that. And how do they realize that, Dean? Because people, as we just saw on the 4th of July, they went on vacations.
Yeah.
More people traveled by car, plane, train to destinations to celebrate the 4th of July than before COVID. And that says that, yes, people do have resources returning to them in a way that they can utilize for other things in their lives. But when they look around at others, they presume that others aren't doing as well as they are. They still think that people are hurting, even members of their own family. Talk to folks about that in an honest way to do in term in a real sense to their lives. And you'll begin to, I think, peel back and clear away some of the fog of, things were much better under Trump than they've been under Biden.
No, I agree. Michael, I'm going to let you go. It's great to see you. Thanks for squeezing this in. There's so much going on. Again, check out Michael's show. He co-hosts on the weekends, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern time, called The Weekend, aptly enough. And I look forward to chatting in the future, brother. Thanks so much. Thanks.
You got it, man. I'm looking forward to coming back. We got some good conversation ahead of us. We're going to do it.
Take care. Have a